Global goals for noble souls, transforming our world to a better wonder to behold. No poverty, zero hunger, for the elderly or younger. Good health and well-being, good education, empowering women to become sensation. Clean water and sanitation, is it not the right of every nation? Economic growth, inclusive and sustained, through industry, innovation and infrastructure be gained. Reduce inequality for sure, make cities and human settlements safe and secure. Take urgent actions to combat climate change, conserve, let below water, land, ensure we do not estrange. Justice for all, oh peaceful and empathetic nations. Let us all partner to achieve these goals and provide much needed salvation.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. All right. Okay, very good morning, good evening, namaste, hola, bonjour, kirimate, terve, and marapan. This is Namya Joshi, your host for the day. Welcome to episode 114 of the podcast, Each One Teach 10, an amazing world of STEM, an inspiring venture where we'll be discussing that STEM is part of every day for every kid. We all will learn together how to build a STEM culture. Well, for today, our guest at the forefront is reimagining education with immersive technology. And I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Jussi Kajala, CEO and co founder of 3DBear OI, a Finnish edtech company bringing AR, VR, and AI into classrooms worldwide. With a PhD in material physics and a degree from the University of Cambridge, Jussi moved from academia into entrepreneurship, where he now leads innovation in simulation based learning for schools, healthcare, and vocational training. And he's also very passionate about educating uh, trainers, teachers, and learners. And he champions both the impact of immersive tools in curriculum and the ethical use of learner data. Jussi on mahtavaa, että olet mukana podcastina. Tervetuloa.
Kiitoksia. Thank you, Nami. A pleasure to be on this show. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much. So, how's the weather like today in Finland? I'm sure it's a little cold.
I'm in the capital region, and today has been a sunny day, which is great because the autumn and then the winter is coming. So we are gearing up for colder weather, but it's not here yet.
That's good to know. That's amazing. All right. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And let's start with the questions that I have for you. So now your journey is really fascinating, I must say. Like you began with a PhD in material physics, even studied in Cambridge, and then you chose the entrepreneurial path with 3DBear. So what was it that inspired you to make that leap from academia into founding an edtech company?
That's an interesting story. The main reason why I went to academia was that I was curious about the world. I wanted to understand the phenomena that govern our universe and began on a journey to study them. But it was also kind of an easy choice. It was like, getting a high school diploma, then getting an undergraduate diploma, then getting a graduate diploma, and then following on a PhD. And on this path, then, if you pursued academical studies, then it would be postgraduate studies, which I didn't do, and then following up on academic career. Um, the honest answer is that at this stage, I hadn't actually considered really, what I want to do in my life. I had just, followed this curiosity path and not really thought about to step aside. But when I was doing PhD studies in what is currently Aalto University, I started to wonder. I started to wonder if this is really, something that is for me. And I found a couple of things in this wondering. I found, first of all, that I feel that I'm not getting enough impact as a researcher. I feel that I want to see things getting into action, things being used. Like my favorite physicist is Nikola Tesla, who harnessed the electricity to benefit humankind. And nowadays in academia, it's if one takes a cynical view, it's like manufacturing peer-reviewed articles that are far away from practical use. And I found that disillusioning. But the second part of it is that I also felt that my personal strengths were better elsewhere. I'm a people person. I like to work in multifunctional teams. And in academia, at least back then, it was pretty narrow. You were coding in basically a chamber, writing code for 4 years that, is it's a different learning environment. So these are the kind of things that pushed me towards entrepreneurship.
That really sounds interesting. And of course, like you've talked about how your journey was driven by curiosity and that desire to understand the world around you, which led you into academia and eventually, like you talked about, doing a PhD at the Aalto University after your time at Cambridge. And like while the research came naturally to you, you also realized that there was not much of an impact that was created which you actually hoped for. At the same time, you were able to discover your personal strengths, like becoming a people person who works well in teams, like to collaborate and thriving in a group setting. And that is really better suited for an entrepreneurial spirit person. And that reflection gradually pushed you into the idea of the edtech and eventually, of course, building 3DBear. So thank you for sharing that. And that is really an inspiring transition, I must say. So, and as once you stepped into the edtech space, you must have noticed how differently countries adopt new technologies. So, from your perspective, what trends are you seeing in augmented reality and virtual reality adoption in the classrooms worldwide? And which regions do you think are really leading the way right now?
Another interesting question and a very topical one as well. Let me answer in a perspective that maybe I understand the best, which is kind of a simulation-based learning. It is a subfield of AR VR tech, or it can be also the other way around. The AR VR tech can be a subfield of simulation learning. So it's not one-to-one correspondence, but that's the field I work in. So I have the most to say. I feel it really is different around the world. So the biggest driver in developing edtech at the moment is artificial intelligence, and XR is kind of secondary to that currently. So it's more like AI plus XR combined is the kind of a primus driver. Nonetheless, so let's say, for example, in Singapore and India, where Namia, it might be very interesting to hear also your views on this. I feel that the kind of emphasis on formative assessment, making teacher work easier, in particular of assessment. and that's driven by the fierce competition in India and in Singapore, grinding to get the kind of a great results in basic skills like maths and literacy. So that I think is the kind of a ethos of most learning in some countries, and then therefore the innovations are focused on that specific area. Whereas in the Nordic countries, learning tends to be more creative. There's more freedom. There's trends like phenomenon-based learning, game-based learning that are very well used here. So it's not a surprise that we develop solutions in these fields. And simulation, so whatever simulation it might be, it can be 360 videos put into branch scenarios on different tools that, players have choice of making different actions. They can, you can film science labs, you can film really practical skills in vocational education, like, how to build an electrical circuit and make it into a game in a 360 world. Or you can, hard code in Unity, Unreal, make these 3D kind of games, and that is already kind of much easier with AI. Or you can even, I think what you're very familiar with, Namia, build different things in Minecraft, and that is also sort of simulation based learning if it corresponds or somehow matches the kind of a real world setting, or you name it. And the kind of a highest and maybe the latest development in this particular field is the AI avatars. So you can discuss with generative AI intelligence that is prompted and maybe specifically tailored for different reasons, and then you can learn language or solve problems and do a lot of open-ended stuff. So I view that the simulation learning is one of the most promising fields in AR and VR, and in particular, it is in higher order skills in K through 12 space, or how would you like to call them, 21st century skills. And then in the kind of vocational and adult learning, there's a lot that you can use it for. Because usually in this space where you train to become a practical nurse or electrical engineer or waste management professional, the skills are very practical. And usually in this space, people don't, their learning style is such that it's not, maybe it doesn't flourish by reading books. It's you need to learn by doing. And there, if you can build real world scenarios, there's the maximum impact that I see at the moment. And this is in fact what 3DBear is doing. In K through 12 space, I think there's a lot of benefit in learning and using simulation, because it makes phenomena visible. You see the results, you see consequences of your actions, and that makes the learning just much more palpable. Just like when electrical engineer learns to build a circuit, he needs to see the tools, he needs to see the circuitry and so on. So in, let's say, in ICT skill space in K through 12, let's say you need to see results of you. Let's say that you put a picture of somebody else in a WhatsApp group in a bad way, and you don't really think about it. But if you can experience that sort of behavior beforehand and see how people get distraught or sad or angry because of these kind of actions, if you do that, if you can simulate this happening beforehand, then maybe you think twice before doing it when it actually is topical. So just some categorization here.
Absolutely, that's really rightly said. Of course, the practical learning is where you actually learn about how your actions affect the environment around you. And that's when I think it's like the hidden trial method, where you are learning about like if one action has certain reaction, what would the consequence be? Would that be positive or negative? And that would actually help you learn. And you also noted that like AR and VR adoption varies worldwide, which is true. But the strongest driver of change remains AI, with, like, of course, XR complementing it. And I really like the idea of simulation based learning as a subfield of AI, or vice versa, becoming especially relevant in the K 12 environment, where it gives students this chance to experiment. They're learning by doing, and of course, benefiting from more engaging and hands on experiences. You also talked about like how Singapore and India apply these tools for formative assessments, and that is really true, because like when it comes to formative assessment in India, when it is like complemented with AI, it is mostly like, the positive aspects include like there's more of adaptive learning, where you can look upon based on difficulties that students are facing, or it even helps in inclusivity or engagement, and also helps the teachers to have more data driven for them, like probably focusing upon grading, or helping them to learn, and that will actually help upon creating more better innovations. But there are also places where there are still the traditional methods, where they really heavily rely on summative assessments. But nowadays it's going more towards like quizzes, group discussions, peer reviews, and even project based learning, which is true, but there is still more improvement needed. But however, when you talked about like the ideas in Nordic countries that really stand out to me as well are like the creative methods. Like you talked about challenge based learning, phenomena learning, game based learning, of course, like using 360 environments, using Blender, Minecraft, and many more tools. So that really shows that how technologies really reshape the classroom environment. And what I feel like is they really support a child's curiosity and deeper learning. So you really delve into learning by learning what your actions would do and how they would, complement your work and projects that you're working upon. Right. So that was an interesting answer and really informative. And I think one concern that many educators have is making sure AR and VR aren't like just a one off gimmick, but something that's truly integrated into the curriculum. How do you see immersive technologies being woven into the mainstream subjects like math, science, or even history, so that they become a part of the everyday classroom experience rather than just, an extra activity?
Right. And let me start from the vocational space, where we in 3DBear, we have actually built this product called Simuna. And for example, this Simuna has the entire basic curriculum learning materials for practical nurses. So that's 1.5 years worth of study. All study materials you need are in it. It has 150 simulations in total, holistically integrated into the material. So that means there's theory, there's H5P exercises, there's multimedia content, there's a lot of different things, 3D models to explore anatomy, and there's simulations. So I believe in this holistic integration. So if you're building an education technology product, I I don't think that the right way forward is building one simulation or building, very single item that is like 1 billionth of what you need to study as a practical nurse. You need to build it as comprehensive as possible, and that also supports the pedagogical impact, because basically the simulation pedagogy says that one should have first this briefing where you kind of get ready for the simulation and get in the right mindset and acquire the right knowledge to actually benefit from the simulation. Then is the simulation exercise, and then there's the debriefing part where you kind of which is really important, because then you kind of think, what did I do? What did I do wrong? How should I improve? And then I actually can retake the simulation to explore different paths and different options that I could have taken. And then you can see different cause effect relationships. And if you build a single simulation, let's say practice truck driving, it is very isolated. It's very isolated from the whole learning that, let's say, a truck driver or logistics expert in Finland gets. Whereas if it is the complete curriculum that you're actually building, then you can certainly guarantee pedagogical impact. And this is the kind of approach we take in 3DBear, in particular in vocational and in corporate space. But then the kind of a really interesting question is K through 12. And there, I don't actually think that immersive tech are core in teaching mathematics or science. They are enrichment. So that's my view in K through 12. It is an important enrichment. But what I believe, like we actually discussed just in connection with the previous question, is that immersive tech can be core in teaching higher order skills and 21st century skills. In Finland, this is in K through 12, it's an own curriculum. So there's like 6 higher order skills. ICT skills, learning to learn, and things like that. And they are taught separately from the subject-specific curriculum like maths, and Finnish and English and so on. But the thing is, teachers are kind of left to their own devices to figure out how they teach this curriculum in Finland. I think it might be same in different countries. So there isn't actually great material available matched to this curriculum. And that leads to wide variety of different choices that different teachers take. They select different material. So to whose class you end up has a big impact on how well are you then taught these higher order skills. It's a kind of a funny thing because, you know, maths is very structured. You learn addition, subtraction, multiplication, and many other subjects are, but higher order skills, they are not. There isn't such a big structure. So we actually collaborated with the English School of Helsinki to build a school-specific curriculum for teaching ICT skills through simulation pedagogy. It's a quite interesting project that I want to share. It's a 2-year project where we map the kind of needs in each grade, and then think based on the national curriculum and some other very relevant benchmarks. We actually did a literature review on this project, to what ICT skills each student should know at each grade. And then we built a learning path in a kind of a learning management system or similar tool called Gridi. And in there, we put in each grade simulations to teach these ICT skills. And these are like, you know, you forget to put the iPad on a charger, so next day you cannot learn and your friends are angry, to really complex things like, you know, how do I handle if I'm being bullied online, where you can kind of make many sorts of scenarios and explore these intriguing cause effect relationships. And this has been really interesting study. We did actually a survey for the students. So there was like group of students who were taught in traditional methods and other students who were taught using this learning path with simulation pedagogy. And we have some really interesting results about it. It was found that, first of all, which is kind of obvious, this kind of a structured approach levels of the students' understanding and competence at each grade level. This is rather obvious, because if you give it just to the teacher, there is a big variation of what different classes and students know. But when you use this structured material that is embedded in teaching, that, you know, every grade 1 students go through this, then you can be certain that, you know, after grade 1, 92% of students, you know the skill. So that was kind of a one main finding. And I think there's a lot to do for solution providers like us and others to build this material. And again, it's the holistic approach. We should be building this sort of a material for teaching ICT skills for all schools in Finland and selling it as a kind of holistic package. I think that is really what is needed for higher order skills to be taught equally and effectively.
I agree. I feel like if every grade child would know what skill they need, it would really help them to gradually grow with each skill so that they can learn from the scratch and from actual the core point. And the fact that I really like the point that you mentioned that every child tried it, not the teacher, because if the child is going to try it themselves, they would know what skill they're able to develop, and that would be a great example for hands-on learning. And I'm really, happy to know that you have a mission to have that in every Finnish school, which is really interesting and empowering. And you also said that you really value like immersive tech when it's not just like a one-off activity but a bigger part of learning experience. For example, you talked about Simona, like a platform that you've built by 3DBear for vocational training that basically can go through more than 150 simulations that blend theory with multimedia, giving them more like a holistic way to learn. And you also pointed out that it's not just about a single simulation. It's about creating experiences that really shape the right mindset and encourage design thinking and really help students to see the cause and effect in action, like we discussed in the previous question also. And of course, when it comes to K-12 education, the tools are mostly used to as enrichment in subjects. And I would agree with the point that you can't, of course, use that totally for hardcore subjects like math and science. But when it comes to the higher order thinking skills, vocational training in education, they are really integral and are becoming much more integral as we go forward to the future workforce. Thank you for sharing. And of course, with these new technologies, we do have new responsibilities that come up. So, since augmented reality and virtual reality often involve interaction with data and learn analytics, what ethical considerations should school and companies really keep in mind as they adopt these immersive tools?
An important question. Um, there's a lot we can do, and maybe we can start kind of what is possible. So let's say that you're in a 3D world, and um, let's say a simulation built by Unity or Unreal, and you walk around, you make choices, you talk to different avatars, which can be generative artificial intelligence powered, and then a lot of data is gathered for your actions. Um, the first thing is this data at the moment is not gathered efficiently or used at all. Nobody's using it effectively, and that's a problem because I believe that data could be used to provide personalized learning for many. I think that the way it kind of will come first is in discussions with generative artificial intelligence. Well, the study module of launched by OpenAI is a prime example. If you combine memory with that, it can provide adaptive learning experience where the kind of study model will start to tailor questions and answers to your need, to your skill. I think it's a great goal to have overall to provide adaptive learning. I think that's the biggest transformation enabled by AI, that we can tailor content learning experiences adaptively based on the personal needs. So I think that should come first. So we should try to enable it. Legislators should try to enable it. Several solution providers should enable it. Schools should enable it because the power is immense. It can prevent dropouts hugely. It can help people in the world to learn better, understand better, and that will lead, as we are maybe preaching to the converted here, to many better things. And that is not happening at the moment. So we need to figure out ways. How is this done? That's, I think, the most important thing. We have done a lot of adaptive learning experiments and are also currently incorporating it in Simuna because AI landscape is improving and changing so quickly. But of course, then this brings to the question that, how do you ensure that the data does not go into the wrong place? um, one question is, what is a wrong place? Um, we are good at building walls and fortresses between different countries. Like Europeans say that the data cannot go to US, and then the US say that the data cannot go to China, and then the China says that the data cannot go in India. And if we just keep going it, soon the Vantaa will have a data barrier between Espoo, and the servers need to be located in my school's cellar. So I don't think building bigger weapons and barriers and ways of preventing people to kind of getting what they want is the way forward. It's more like we need to be able. We need, like in the real world, we need to be able to learn and be sensitive how we share our data. So I don't think that the kind of barriers and regulations and restrictions are the way forward. I think it's learning. It's about knowing what you can share and where. Because if you are in a kind of a 3D environment, and you can get this amazing adaptive learning experience if you enable it, that has superior effects. But then you just need to understand that, I don't share my credit card numbers here or tell about my mental disorders in these specific spaces if they are not meant for such spaces, which is actually another part of it, because immersive environments can actually be much safer spaces than physical spaces in some sense. Bullying usually happens in school bus, in breaks, in kind of places where teachers don't see you. But in immersive environment, teachers can see you everywhere. So it's actually quicker. It can be in that way safer for a student because there can be immediate intervention, which is better than going to the school's toilet where you can get your ass kicked. So I apologize for the profanity, but I think that is one thing that we are usually so focused on the fears and downsides of the digital security, so we can see its benefits. So I would also like to bring this up, that there's much we can actually improve on from the physical world in the digital one.
I agree because like I have seen a lot of people when when it comes to talking about AI and immersive environments, they start thinking about like why physical environments are being sidelined and why we're focusing so much on the immersive environments and using a lot of technologies for the same. But the thing is that if it's a new normal and it's something that is an upcoming technology that has to be, you know, delve into adaptive learning. So we should focus on how it can be improved other than being sidelined. And really like the point of how it can really help students to be, themselves, to not be scared, and to be, of course, feeling secure in an environment where they can talk their heart out. And of course, they don't have to hesitate when they have to share something. And of course, like you talked about the immersive technologies like 3D worlds and simulations, they're like if they're built with different platforms, they can be really powerful because they generate so much learning data. But the problem that even I totally understand is that this data is not always gathered or used effectively because there are so many users using it. And if it were, it could, like you said, support more personalized and adaptive learning, which really tailors to our memory, the needs and process, which of course I really relate to the fact could reduce dropouts and of course improve outcomes for the upcoming generation. And like you said that you've also already tried many experiments in this space, but as AI is like one day you wake up, there's new things coming up every single day. So it's crucial to think about how this data is being handled. And one interesting point that you mentioned was about countries blocking and restricting its use, which actually would create barriers. But if we have to stop that, we need to be both open to the opportunities. And when you talked about sensitivity and about how learning data is shared and protected, it reminded me of the pillars of digital citizenship when it comes to how you're being aware, balanced, alert, informed, engaged online, where you know what to share, how to create those safe spaces, which really makes you that impactor. So if we have that mindset, then I think these environments and these places could flourish really well. Right. Okay, so I have a fun question to ask you. Mikä olisi urasi perustuvan elokuvan nimi?
Um, I had something in mind. My first intuition was to say Fast and Furious, but I think it's in Finnish it would be vauhtiaan vaarallisia tilanteita.
And for the audience, what does that mean?
It means speed and dangerous situations.
Ooh, interesting. And would you like to tell like why maybe?
Well, entrepreneurship is a journey, and I'm, everybody's seen the Silicon Valley on streaming services, and a lot of stories about what is entrepreneurship. So I've lived it 9 years, and there have been spectacular successes, spectacular fails, crazy pivots. So, and I'm still smiling.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I totally understand. If I would choose mine, there's this Hindi movie, but if I would say the words in English, it would be The Stars on the Ground. Because I feel like the importance of being grounded, like even though you've achieved a lot in life and you've done many great things, but if you're grounded and if you're humble, it really helps you to go ahead and, learn more from more people at the same time, keep on sharing with others because that really helps you to grow together with people, and of course creates a very enriching environment and you get to become a better person. Right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's a really very thoughtful perspective. I must say that you talked about it. Now, if we look to the future and remove all limits, like no budget constraints, no technology barriers, if you could design the ultimate AR or VR learning experience, what would it look like?
As I noted earlier, I believe in simulation pedagogy. So this would be the holodeck as described in Star Trek. Maybe many viewers or listeners are familiar with this science fiction concept, but it means it's a holographically simulated environment that builds, physical things around you as you enter the simulation room, which are real, which can, hurt you, which can speak to you, which can, actually be there. So I think that's the dream, because obviously the ultimate of simulation is the real world, and to build simulation as matching to the real world as possible, that's the holodeck. Maybe there's like intermediate paths there, like VR plus haptics and some other crazy stuff. There's VR caves, which actually 3DBear we've built 4 of those, and these are getting pretty close to the holodeck, where you can learn practical skills. But I think that the emergence of AI makes this holodeck closer to reality. So, because you can build, let's say we already have a working prototype in 3DBear, a system where one retrieval augmented generation RAG AI model builds simulation scripts. And that used to take a lot of time. Years ago, we built so many simulations in 3DBear, 2,000 simulations overall. So we now made an AI that builds them for us, and it makes them as good as we do, but in 2 seconds. So there's one AI model which builds simulation scripts. Then there's another model who transforms these scripts into Unity simulations. Basically, does placements of 3D objects in 3D space and codes their kind of interaction. So I can say to these two scripts together, an agent that kind of controls them. that build me a simulation that I want to practice, let's say, customer interaction. So make me an office space where I can talk with a difficult customer who is not satisfied with my product, Simuna, and it builds it. And I get there into the 3D space and I get to practice it instantaneously. So that's pretty cool. So we're not actually that far off. And I think in our specific niche, in this kind of a simulation training, we can actually reach the holodeck in a couple of years, which is crazy. But world is crazy nowadays.
Absolutely, it indeed is. And like you said, if there were no limits, and your dream would then be to create something like a holodeck, which is like a holographic environment where the simulations feel physically real. And with, of course, with haptics and immersive spaces, learners could actually step into that practical real world scenarios at a very high scale. And you mentioned how 3DBear has already experimented with VR caves, and imagine like taking that further by combining AI models and then generate scripts, which would then turn into the Unity simulations with intelligent agents controlling the interactions, where you could actually experiment into anything. Like you talked about exploring environments, but also practicing real life customers interaction skills, of course, with in a very safe and fully immersive environment. And that would actually help a lot of students and young people, and of course a lot of people who wish to experience the same thing to practice it in an immersive environment. But the holographic environment, of course, seems like a very interesting idea, and like you said, it's the ultimate dream.
Indeed. And I think it can be also thought of like the one version of it is that you have this like open AI study model. If you talk with whatever language model such as ChatGPT 5, you
Hmm.
get this kind of a memory, you get personalized feedback because of the memory if you turn it on.
Yeah.
Soon there will be kind of linking between the different threads you use, so the memory can be more sophisticated, so it really knows you and really answers to your kind of your specific needs and styles. But to put that in a simulation context, that's something I think incredible, because then
Yeah.
you could provide completely adaptable simulation. So let's say I'm having difficulty with um, dealing with difficult customers or whatever, because I don't like conflict. I'm
Hmm.
conflict averse, and it's really kind of difficult for me to go into challenging discussions. So and that's something that ChatGPT 5 won't tell you how you kind of improve it. It's you don't again learn it by reading. This is how you behave when you have in difficult situations. You learn it by somebody shouting at your face, and then you are kind of thinking, "Oh my God, I'm so scared to death, and how do I ever survive?" And then by this kind of a practice in a real situation, it is entirely different. But to put that in this context, then the kind of simulation can make the path easier for you. You can practice it in thresholds. You can freeze the situation like in holodeck.
Yep.
Think, what should I do here? Okay, this is safe environment. I can stop this whenever I want. That's already something, because even if it would be acted by people to kind of a practice by normal kind of a case practice, it can be really intimidating. But in this kind of a safe digital space, you can stop the simulation, you can kind of go back, you can make the intensity lower. This was too much for me, I can't take it. Let's put the intensity lower. You can say it to the AI, and then it produces kind of easier simulations. There's a lot of benefit in this, and we're really into something here.
Yeah, absolutely. Feels like I've time traveled to the future. I feel this is what it looked like. Right. Jussi, kiitos arvokkaiden näkemysten jakamisesta siitä, miten immersiivinen oppiminen voi muokata koulutuksen tulevaisuutta. I hope I said that right.
Kiitos. That was great, Namia. Perfect.
Thank you. Kiitos. Your vision for making these tools accessible worldwide is truly inspiring. And thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing these amazing experiences and, of course, insights that really highlight what the future would look like. It was an honor to have you on the podcast.
Pleasure was mine, Namia. Thank you.
Kiitos. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining and listening to this episode. And I'll see you in the next